Yes, sir. There we go.
Thank you.
So, the prospecting method that I realized worked for me was geo prospecting. Okay, there's a lot of other ones. There's FISBOs, there's expireds. Here's why I didn't go that route. Number one, I didn't want to be competing with just too many agents that are calling the same lead source. It's not an excuse. Some people do very well at it, but I wanted to eliminate as much friction to get started prospecting as I could. And in my mind, FISBOs and expireds being in competition with all of these people on the phone just wasn't going to cut it. Number two, I really like to be in control of my what I call ideal inventory, right? When somebody posts something for sale by owner or an expired, you're kind of tied into what expired or what just went on for sale by owner. I like to know, okay, what is VITALY's brand as a listing agent? What does he typically list, right? And I like, $1 million home with a pool, low or no HOA, and I just target those communities via geo prospecting, and I get to pick which areas I approach. And doing that in massive numbers, so I do 200 cold calls every single day, Monday through Friday. Sometimes I do 100 on the Saturday. Connecting with as many people as I can without really an agenda, because you can't really have one if you're reaching out to random people. And just seeing if there's anybody out there who is planning on selling now or at some point in the future. Nurturing those relationships over time via follow-up. And a year later, we're $10 million, just under. We're pushing to get a little over 10 million, but that really is the outcome of that. A couple of things too is, I went into it knowing that it's not going to be something that will kind of sprout right away, because it is a long-term process. I follow up with my listings, on average 3 to 5 months before we actually get a relationship to the point of a listing from the initial point of contact. But I also knew that if I did it massively and consistently, I would over time have such a big of a snowball of pipeline that I'll be unstoppable at that point. So that really is the, in a nutshell, is leaving my industry in the mortgage space, going into real estate, not having a pipeline whatsoever, and then developing that pipeline through a preferred method of a lead source that's geo prospecting, just doing it a lot and doing it for an extended amount of time.
I love that. I love that. Vitaly, tell us, what was fascinating from the story that you told me is how you call, right? Like, we have so many tools out there and that help us speed up the process. This is what I love about what Vitaly does, is he picks up the phone and dials the number. At least 200. Tell us a little bit about that. And I couldn't believe it, right? Because when I started dialing, I used Vulcan 7 and it was a dialer, right? My team uses a triple line dialer, and you're going old school, dialing each number. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I use my cell phone and I hand dial all of those numbers. To dial 200 numbers a day takes me anywhere between 2 to 3 hours. So hence my time block of calling from 9 to 12. It is a non-negotiable activity. I believe that in our industry, if you want to be successful, you have to focus only on income producing activities, which is what prospecting is. But yeah, I just pick up the phone and I call. I have my list. I use Redx as a source of phone numbers. I export that list into a spreadsheet, and I just go one by one. The problem is with, realtors for the most part, and people, we're so blessed to be given freedom of choice in our industry, to have that, freedom to do anything that we want, that sometimes we get lost in just unnecessary things, but how do I know if those numbers are correct? Or how do I know if that's the person's name? Or should I research their neighborhood, extensively before I do anything in that neighborhood? Absolutely not. You have to remove as much friction as you possibly can from your daily activities so that you can get started immediately. So just, on the side note, but this is relevant as well, just think about today and a couple of months from now, right? If you are someone, say you don't have any pipeline or you don't have any closing scheduled now or in January, okay, and you're starting, you got inspired by the talk, I'm going to go prospect. Okay, know that every day that you're not prospecting or looking for business, you're setting yourself up for failure 3 to 4 months from now, right? Like if you don't have a listing right now or pipeline right now and you start calling today, chances are it's probably going to take you a month or two just to get that listing, probably another month or two to find a buyer for that listing, and then of course another month to close on that listing. So today, November 22nd, we're already operating in March of next year. That's, to me, that's a mind-blowing fact. And that's why, we call it discipline or whatever else. At the end of the day, you just have to realize for yourself what it is that you want. I don't want to be without income until March of next year. March of next year, my wife would have already bought pillows, 1,500 pillows for her house, for the 1,500 holidays that exist in the United States. We need to get that going, as soon as possible. So eliminate as much friction as you can from your daily routine. That way you're motivated to get started without negotiating with yourself whether what you're doing is correct. There's a list, there's a phone number, and there's a phone to call it. And that's really all about what you need to do.
Beautiful. I love that. And I have a couple of other questions that are coming in.
Yeah.
What system do you use to get your phone numbers from?
So I use RedX. I've actually been using RedX ever since 2018. It's an amazing platform. I am going to do a shameless plug. I'm an affiliate with them, but I use their systems religiously every day. Christina has a link to save like 35% and $150 discount for sign-up fees. But I have found it to be an incredible resource, whatever it is. And I want to say this too, is whether it's geo prospecting or for sale by owners or expireds, it's nice to pick a niche. For me, it's geo, but it doesn't matter as long as you call. I mean, you can go to Costco and hand out business cards and probably get a good conversion there as well. So it's just action. But Christina, to answer your question, yes, RedX is what I use as a source of leads.
Love it. Love it. And another question that we have is, what does your follow-up process look like with these leads that you get through your calls?
Yes. So follow-ups, I really just separate them into 3 categories. You have the hot, you have the warm, and you have the cold. The hot leads are the ones that want to do something in the next 30 days. I typically follow up with them weekly. So that's non-negotiable. Every week on Monday, I don't take any meetings. I just have a time block in my schedule in the afternoon to do that. Then you have warm leads, 60 to 90 days. They want to do something. So within the 3-month period, I typically follow up with them once every 4 weeks, once a month. Once a month. And then we have the cold leads, which are people who are looking to do something over, longer than 90 days, but that they're motivated or semi-motivated. For instance, I called somebody 2 months ago and they said, we're fixing up the roof. We don't know what the contractors, how long it's going to take, but we're fixing up the roof to sell the home. So I follow up with them religiously, but they may not be in that immediate time frame. So those people you'd probably touch base with once every 3 months. So once a week, once a month, and once a quarter, depending on the lead category.
I love that. I love it. And, the other question that I had for you is, you don't leave voicemails.
No.
Tell us about that, because one of the big things that also stood out to me is that you don't leave voicemails, and he also uses his own cell phone, right? Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's why he does it.
Yeah, so I don't leave voicemails because to me, I'm always on to the next phone call, right? In our business, in my opinion, if you want to progress, you have to do it in massive numbers, right? Maybe with for sale by owners or expireds, it could be a little different, but I'm dialing hundreds of phone numbers on a daily basis. I have no time to leave anybody a voicemail. If I call and you don't pick up, you'll never hear from me again. If I call, you pick up and you're not interested, I'm not gonna ask you follow-up questions, all this stuff, what would you do if you did sell, and where's your family? Like, to me, it's just so creepy. I'm not in the business of convincing somebody to sell their biggest asset. In fact, those of you who think that that's how it works, let me convince you to sell your car to me right now, like right this moment. If you're not in the market for that, you're just not going to go for it. So my goal is not to convince people or to leave trails of me with voicemails. My goal is on to the next. If I call and you're interested, we're going to talk. If not, I'm going to move on to the next call. So it's really just recycling. I hate to say it, but it's recycling people, prospects in phone numbers until you get to that ultimate yes, which again is one of the frictions, right? You need to remove the frictions. On to the next until you get what you want.
I love that. And one of the things that I learned from just my own sales experience that takes the pressure off, right? Or the friction is called to make a friend, right? Just like you said, it's for a long-term play. You're building a relationship. And if someone's talking to you, you're building that relationship versus, trying to convince somebody that's just negative and opposed to even talking to you in general, which I love that. The other thing that I wanted, does anybody else have any questions? I really want to do one role play with VITALY. Let me see, what do we got?
Yeah, I was about to ask that, Christina, if we could do one role play.
Perfect. Yeah, so Vanessa's like, what are some of the opening conversation when he makes a call? So does anybody want to role play with VITALY?
Why don't you play so?
I'll play seller. Okay, all right, VITALY, it's gonna be you and me. Let's do it.
Perfect. This will be the quickest role play in role play history, right? Because we're doing it. Just here we go. So ready?
Mhm.
Hey, Christina.
Yes. Hello.
Hey, Christina, it's VITALY, Coldwell Banker Realty. How are you?
I'm great. Where are you from?
Yeah, this VITALY, Coldwell Banker Realty. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Christina, just wanted to keep you in the loop. I noticed on Main Street, one of your neighbors sold their home for around 2.6 million a few weeks back. Just kind of wanted to check in, see if there's anything I can do for you at some point.
Oh, okay. Which house is that? I'm not familiar with the latest sale.
Yeah, the one on 123 Main Street, it was a 6-bedroom home. I think the Johnstons own it. I don't know if you come across them.
Oh, no, I'm not familiar with them, but yeah, that's an interesting number. Our prices have gone up.
Yeah, the market's just been so crazy, and you've lived in the neighborhood for a while, so you've seen all the fluctuations. I kind of just wanted to check in, with that sale. It was just a little crazy. So I wasn't sure, maybe you thought about doing something that we could help with.
No, I'm not interested in selling, but definitely have done a lot of renovations in the last couple of years with COVID. Just keeping the house updated is become the top priority. But no, I haven't really thought about selling.
Yeah, no worries at all. Well, if you don't mind, let's definitely keep in touch. If anything does change, life goes on. If you want, I could shoot you an email with my name, just in case you needed anything at all. And that way we can just stay in contact if anything comes up. Would that work?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, VITALY.
Perfect.
I'd appreciate that.
Of course, sounds good. So that's really it. So my goal, if it's a no, I try to get an email because I do a weekly email newsletter. So anytime somebody tells me a no, I try to get an email from them. And if they don't give me an email, I'm just on to the next. But I'm not interested in what type of renovation she's doing, if she's planning on doing any other renovations, or when she's planning to sell, or where she's going to go if she did sold. If I hear a no, to me, that disqualifies her right away, and I move on to the next one.
So we have a question from Ro about the real sale. So VITALY, talk about, right? So when we call, we use our sales for the community. And for VITALY, what is your advice when you call them on the type of the number that you use? Because obviously, guys, I'm sure VITALY doesn't call and just BS on a number, right? He does his research.
No, absolutely not. So here's why I love geoprospecting. Geoprospecting gives you the ability to, like I said, to just pick a neighborhood that's ideal to you. And here's the thing, in any neighborhood that you pull up on the MLS, there's always a history of sales. Okay. You don't need to say my team or I sold it. You don't need to lie to anybody. You're just there to provide information. So say I pick out a neighborhood that I like with the home types that I prefer in my business. And then I just, in that neighborhood, I circle on the MLS and I see what is the highest sale in that neighborhood. I don't care if it's my team, if it's me, if it's Christina, if it's somebody else. I really don't care. So I just pick that as a reference point. I have it pulled up on one of my screens and I reference it. So if Christina asked me, well, what type of house is on 123 Main Street and how many bedrooms, I'd be able to tell her, and in my initial opening, I say, I just want to keep you in the loop. One of your neighbors on Main Street closed on their home. I'm just giving them, objective information. It doesn't matter who sold it, and I'm not saying I did, right? But it's just a reference point in the community. There's always going to be something that sold or went under contract. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, is feel free to pick any comp that you want, regardless of whether it's within your team or not. Provide that information and then lead next with what can I do to help.
I love that. And one of the tips that Vitaly did mention, because he is super focused on the niche that he's looking for, right? So he mentioned earlier, over $1 million, a house with a pool with low HOA. Like, you got to know what you're targeting, right? And then when he calls, he does look at the highest comp or the most recent one, right? I think, or you said the highest comp, because you want people to be educated in that neighborhood.
Yes. And I also want them to be blown away by comps too, because that's how you get your foot in the door. Some communities out there have ranges of prices, even within the same HOA community, you can have $1 million on the low end and $4 million on the high end. I'm going to go ahead and pick the highest one just so people can get a little bit of a shock when I call. A lot of people don't know what's happening. So I can call $1 million home in that same neighborhood and say, one of your neighbors on Main Street sold theirs for $4 million. Can I do anything for you? I'm not saying that's what your home is worth, but if I see sense in their voice, or if they tell me that they may be interested, my goal is to get my foot in the door and I say, look, I drive by your neighborhood on my way to work every day. Is there any chance I could stop in for a few minutes, just take a look at it, see what your house may be worth?
Beautiful. Love it. Does anybody else have any questions for Vitaly? Yes? No? I love one of the things that Vitaly does that he shared with me is, right, if someone's not interested, like, he role played and he just immediately, well, thank you for your time, and he would just hang up and go to the next person. That was, to me, that stood out the most. To the point. That's right. What tool do you use to source contact info, and do you have all entered into a dialer? No, he doesn't use a dialer. He uses a cell phone.
Yeah, I just have an Excel spreadsheet and I go one by one. I've gotten to the point where I time myself. I dial 1.5 numbers a minute. And by the way, another thing too, if you're not using a dialer, this may be helpful. One outbound phone call is 4 rings. So you're not waiting till the end, till you have the voice message, response pop up. It's 4 rings and you're on to the next. So, and then as far as, I guess, to source contact info, like a follow-up system, I use Follow Up Boss, but it's really not necessary if you don't have it. I mean, I went off of a spreadsheet forever until I decided to get Follow Up Boss. That's it. Especially in the beginning, trying to minimize expenses, you can use anything, a calendar, whatever you want, as long as you have a dedicated time block for follow-up. Because, at the end of the day, none of this effort would make any sense whatsoever unless you're nurturing relationships that you've initially created. Because very few people, out of all the listings I've had this year, only one of them, when I called, are like, yes, let's list right now. None of them will do that, really. So you need a system to follow up on it and do it so consistently and efficiently that relationship grows over time and you get that listing. So whatever system you want to use, that's no problem.
I love it. And any final tips? I mean, that we have some seasoned people on this call, and we have people that are newer and starting cold calling. Do you have any advice for people? Any final takeaways, Vitaly?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So I was looking at the comments. They're like scrolling like TikTok. So I would say, you know, one of the things that I would say one of the things that sets apart a successful agent from a non-successful agent, it's not experience, it's not skill, it's not the way you look or the way you sound. It really is consistency. And I mean it with, I get goosebumps every time I say that, because the amount of people who say they're going to do something and then they do it for a week and it doesn't work and they just fade away is overwhelming. I am a believer that there's no such thing as a competition, because in any given room of people who consider themselves to be professionals, there's always going to be 0.5% who actually sticks with it over time. If you are the worst agent on the planet and your voice isn't clear and you don't know what to say and you stumble, eventually you're still going to get a list, as long as you call consistently over time in massive numbers, you know. And then imagine all of your skills, all of your backgrounds into play, and then doing that, you'll be unstoppable. Everybody in this room deserves at least a $25 million business on an annual basis. If you just put all of the resources you get from your team and your skill and the way that you are, and just do it consistently over time, there's no way that in 5 years and 3 years, you're not the top agent in your space. So consistency is the only thing that I would say, you know, that'll set you apart. Just stick with it and do it for long periods of time. That's it.
I love that. I love it. Guys, if you enjoyed VITALY, put some fires in the chat. If you got value out of what he shared, I love talking to VITALY. He is so incredible. I listened, this is the second time we're having this conversation. I got so much nuggets out of everything that you're sharing. And what a great way to end, guys. Jeff, do you want to add anything? I know this is
No, just amazing, man. Thank you so much. What happens is that it's the encouragement, you know, it's the encouragement to hear that you're doing something different and you're definitely staying on course. So just kudos to you. Go to action, guys. What is it? 39 more days left in the year. Let's make it count.
I love it. I love it. Guys, I hope you go and attack the phones, whether you're using a dialer or using a cell phone like VITALY, and just pick up the phone and get in front of people, start talking to people, and just be consistent. I love that VITALY ended with that. Consistency is king. We're all showing up here every day, training, learning, and supporting one another. And that is priceless. That's a huge investment for yourself. So guys, I'm done. Peace. Go make it a powerful day.
No question, everybody.
Bye.